All right. I think we're live. I'm going to hope that we're live.
I'm alive.
Hi, everybody. Well, first of all, I think we're officially live. Hi, everybody who joined us on our second, our Facebook Live, YouTube Live on the Vallow Daybell saga. We did this before many months ago, and so many things have happened. So I'm happy that we have a chance to do this again. This is Jesse Weber from Law&Crime, and I'm joined here by executive producer from Law&Crime, Cathy Russon, our preeminent expert on all things Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. But we're also joined by a very special guest who was kind enough to be generous with her time, who's been following this case from the very beginning. You might know her from her Twitter account at Pretty Lies Alibi, or Pretty Lies and Alibi. It's basically all about legal stories, big trials. Gigi is with us. So Gigi, this is the first time you and I have ever met, but I understand that you and Cathy are good friends. I feel a little left out, but
yeah, Cathy and I go way back to the Jodi Arias trial.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we have a little history.
It's
great to be here. Thank you so much.
I'd say we tore it up in Phoenix, but we
had
did.
Fun.
We just worked.
Yeah,
what has more twists and turns, Jodi Arias or Lori Vallow?
Lori Vallow.
Lori Vallow. You know, so it's interesting. We, I don't think anybody watching this doesn't know about this case. I think they probably know as much as we know. But just in case we don't, I want to do a very, very quick recap about what this case is about. And remember, the purpose of this discussion is we are taking your questions. So whatever you want to ask about this case, ask us. We will talk about it. We will do our best to answer the questions because there are a lot of questions in this case. It seems to be more questions than we have answers. But here's a very quick recap of what this story is about and where we are right now. So very quick. Obviously, not all the details. We will get into it. Here are the broad strokes. Lori Vallow Daybell, Chad Daybell out in Idaho, a married couple, and they're facing multiple criminal charges after Lori's children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, whom she actually had from other marriages, they went missing back in 2019. There was a ton of speculation about what had happened to them. Was she involved? Was Chad involved? Ultimately, Lori was charged basically with a series of crimes like contempt, desertion, solicitation, all because she didn't produce the children as she was ordered to. You fast forward to June 2020, Tylee and JJ's remains are found on Chad's property. Then you fast forward to May 2021. Chad and Lori are eventually charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in connection with the kids' deaths. But not only that, the two of them are also charged with conspiracy to commit murder and Chad with first-degree murder for the death of Tammy Daybell. Now, Tammy Daybell was Chad's wife, who Chad said mysteriously died in her sleep, but clearly that is not true. And Chad even married Lori 2 weeks after Tammy's death. So this was all very suspicious. They're charged. And then there's another person we have to talk about, and that is Charles Vallow. This is Lori's former husband, who was shot dead by Lori's brother, Alex Cox, back in July 2019. You can see how the bodies start piling up in this case. And while initially this was thought to be a self-defense case, Lori has since been charged with conspiracy to commit murder for Charles's death. The authorities alleging that Lori and Alex conspired to kill Charles. Oh, and speaking of Alex Cox, we can't forget that the man who authorities believe was not only instrumental in the deaths of Tylee and JJ, but Charles as well. He has since died, seemingly from natural causes, a blood clot, a pulmonary embolism, very strange. And as of right now, as we currently sit, Lori has been deemed incompetent to stand trial in Idaho. She's actually committed to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. As for Chad Daybell, his trial in Idaho moving forward, there was just a change of venue that was granted by the judge. And that trial is moving forward. It is going to move to a different county. And Chad faces the death penalty. Now, why are we having this conversation now? Because what has been released, well, this has been incredible. There have been never before seen police interrogation tapes that have been released. There are those of Alex, there are those of Tylee Ryan, there are those of Lori. This all happened after Charles's shooting. And there are also interviews with other key characters in this case, like Alex Cox's widow, Zulema, former friends of the Daybells. These interviews were conducted by Idaho authorities. There are a treasure trove of emails and text messages that have been released by the Chandler, Arizona Police Department. So there is clearly a lot to break down at this point. I mean, I could have gone through a recap. It would have taken me 2 hours to get into everything, but that is currently where we stand. And I guess I want to go to Gigi and Cathy on this. Let's just talk. This release of all this information, what are your first thoughts that we saw of this?
For me, we had seen some of the things that were released, some text messages and things like that, but the document dump really connected a lot of things together. It gave context to things that we had a little snippet of before. So for me, there was just a lot of really revealing things, especially in the text messages between all the parties. So I think this document dump, the one before wasn't, if you follow the trial closely, or the case closely, it wasn't a big reveal. This one, I felt like we really learned a lot in what led up to Charles being murdered.
Right, because the theory was it was self-defense, right? It was like, oh, it was self-defense, but then it became, no, Alex and Lori conspired to kill him. Cathy, what stood out to you that, like, from this, that they planned to kill Charles?
Well, you know what? And I'll say this to Gigi too. One of the first things when I started reading through these text messages, one of the first things that came to my mind was Chad's 5 kids. How can they read and know about all that? I'm assuming they're trying to stay away from it, but how can they continue to support him? So that was my first thing is these are damning. Okay. These are just like outright 100% damning. But for a lot of people, and right now in chat, we've already had a lot of questions about, are there going to be other charges? What do you think about other people getting charged? So we see in these text messages, maybe there should be some other charges coming out. I am so happy we have this because we don't usually have this much before a trial. And all of a sudden, and we wouldn't still if Chandler didn't go, and we're out, you know. I mean, they'll have Lori with Charles, but maybe someday. But Idaho's not releasing what they have. You know, they had all the cell phones. They've got a lot of information in Idaho. My first thought was, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get any sleep for many weeks because I'm going to be up until 2 a.m. And that's exactly what's been happening this week.
Well, with nightmares from it. Yeah, Idaho hasn't been releasing. Like I just, before we came on, I looked at the indictment against Lori and Chad for the killing of the kids and the, Tammy Daybell. And they give broad strokes. They don't get into details of what they really have.
No, they don't want to give away much.
No, I was surprised that Arizona released all this stuff.
I was a little surprised, but maybe, I don't know. I wanted to, just while we're thinking about it and talking about the web, show our handy dandy graphic that we made at Law&Crime.
Let's show that.
And I'm learning how to share a screen, so everybody just
the beauty of technology.
Oh, wait a minute, where'd it go? There it is. Very exciting stuff going on here.
That's it.
All right, here we are. Oh, now we have 2 Law&Crime bugs thanks to the.
This is a great graphic. We played it on the network the other day. I think this is probably the most simplistic way.
Well, that's the thing. I had to tell our graphics guy in the most simplistic terms, like this graph should look like a highway map of the United States. But this is as simple as we could get. And the people that are in black and white are dead. And the people that are colored are in jail.
Yeah. And Gigi, we mentioned this, but Joseph Ryan was Lori's 3rd husband. I've seen a lot of, I think it was, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Lori's brother who came out that said she thinks that Lori and Alex might have killed Joseph as well, right? I mean, what do we know about Joseph Ryan?
Well, we know that they closed the investigation into his death and deemed it natural. However, one little thing I caught in these documents just today is they were interviewing a friend of Lori's from Hawaii who said that the story was that a neighbor smelled a foul smell coming from that apartment. So maintenance went in, found Joe. But in this interview with this friend, she said that the story Lori told was that they hadn't heard from Joe in a month. And so Tylee had a key and they went over and found him. I think the general consensus among anybody who follows this trial is it's definitely suspicious.
Well,
Oh,
he died of a heart attack, and like it's suspicious because Tammy died in her sleep,
Yeah.
and
okay,
Alex.
let me tell you just really
blood
quick.
clot.
I don't want to go off on a rabbit hole of Joseph Ryan for the Tonight Show, but let me just tell you about this guy. He went through hell in a child custody battle just because he wanted to see his daughter Tylee. And Lori, I read all 1,800 pages of their child custody court documents, and Lori accuses him of everything and anything you can possibly imagine. And he passes a lie detector, and guardian ad litem's appointed for Tylee say the mom is making it up.
Yeah.
So Joseph, so they're all start off in Texas, right? And so do Charles and Lori, and then they move to Phoenix. And so Joseph actually picks up and moves his life to Arizona because he wants to see his daughter and be in her life, and he dies alone in an apartment and nobody knows for a month.
So yeah, I don't want to go down that Joseph Ryan too, but I do want to. I'm going to say a name here. I'm going to let Gigi and Cathy run with this because we actually had Susie Pringle actually wrote this. She goes, and it's about Zulema. Okay, I think
you can click on it, Jesse, and put it up if you want.
How do you do that? Oh, show. Yay. Any chance that Zulema's story about the plastic sheet purchased for her and Alex's honeymoon could actually lead to being involved in the dismembering of Tylee, her DNA on the sheet? So that's might be a stretch, but really, so Zulema basically said in this police interview that the day after she gets married to Alex, she basically said Alex was maybe going to kill her at the direction of Chad and Lori. I'll let you guys jump.
Listen. So she comes up with this now. What you need to know, everybody go to Law&Crime Network's YouTube after this. Stay here and go in and watch these interviews if you haven't watched them, and concentrate on Zulema's interview. Zulema's highly, highly involved in everything in this case. And her interview is like, those people are crazy. I don't know what those people were doing, right? No, Zulema, you very much did know. So I don't think at the moment when this happened in Vegas, the day after they got married, I don't think she thought much about it. So now she's like, but he was a massage therapist, Alex was. And so he wanted to give her a massage with the oils and stuff, but they're in a hotel room and he doesn't want to get the bedding all ruined. So she says they went and bought a tarp. Now, if my brand new husband's going to go buy a tarp to give me a massage, I'm not there. I'm not down with that. It's a hard no for me. So she says she did that, but she also had a drink of something, or she couldn't remember if she had a drink. She felt so sleepy that she couldn't move, but she could hear him talking in the bathroom. And then he wasn't himself after that. What she's kind of alluding to is maybe I was supposed to die that night, but then, Chad had a different revelation on the phone. And so Alex didn't kill me.
Oh, by the way, she said this, in April of 2021 after everything happened?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Gigi, what do you think? I mean, do you believe her? Do you believe that this actually happened with her and Alex?
It's hard. These people have diabetes is what I call it. They all lie nonstop. So it's really hard to know when they're being serious. I don't know. I mean, I just think she's really trying to distance herself. But from what we've read with this document dump, she was right in the middle of everything. I don't believe her.
Do we have a clip of her?
Yeah.
Cathy, I think we do.
Okay, so we're trying to get a little fancy here on our lives, but not that fancy. So don't judge us. But I just pulled it up. I don't know how great this is going to sound, you guys. It's pulled up from Law&Crime's YouTube, but we're going to give it a shot. So
let's see how it does.
We'll see how this goes.
If it's not good, you can write us and tell us this is great.
Yeah. I don't remember. I don't know why that kind of became like a like, I mean, I didn't even see it as a plan until you were, until you bring it up. I didn't even realize that it had a pattern like that. So, and it's possible that it was part of that, manipulation, part of that, you're the contact person kind of thing, or, putting you in this. This is one thing that, now that I talk about this, one of the things that they started saying to me from the beginning was that putting me in a position of being so special, and like Lori and Chad used to say to me often, your mission is the most important one.
Okay, so I just wanted to get to that. Lori and Chad used to tell me often that my mission was the most important one. What was her mission, Gigi?
I mean, for me, all I can see is she tried to conjure up earthquakes and natural disasters. I just don't know.
I know.
I don't know how she got immunity. I'll tell you that much.
Did she get immunity? I mean, so Monique Dawn says, "How did Zulema get immunity?" I thought her attorney said that immunity was offered. I don't know if she actually got an immunity deal. I mean, I would probably have suggested she does get a deal since Alex Cox is dead. She could be the closest thing to some of the answers he had.
So this is what I know about Zulema and her powers. I didn't know until this dump that possibly Chad is the one that told her she had these powers. But what I've known all along is Zulema thought she had powers to control elements such as earthquakes. And that was going to be very important in the last days before the second coming, when the end of the world is going to happen, because Chad and Lori's mission is to help usher in the second coming of Christ, and that is to get rid of all the evil spirits in the world. And Zulema was the most important part of that mission. So what was she supposed to do? Cause earthquakes and kill people? Gigi can talk about text messages that we see where they're literally trying to telepathically kill Charles Vallow. Talk about that, actually.
That was really one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. It almost reads like a kid's book. You know, it's like, I'm on him, I'm shooting bright lights at him. Which at the time, I think he's driving, has JJ with him, by the way. They both know this.
So, so they're both in Arizona. Or no, Lori's in Texas briefly with Charles, right? Driving, or is this happening in Arizona? I think it's in Texas. And Lori's texting with Zulema saying he's on the road right now. We need to get rid of the evil spirit Ned, or whatever it was at that moment. They have 3 different evil spirits in him. And they're literally texting. Lori's like, I have the power of light, so I'm going to blind him while he's driving. And Zulema's like, I have the power of fire. And so they're seriously, it's like a kid's cartoon, and they're texting back and forth. They're like, I can feel it. Can you feel it? I can feel your power. You go, girl. And you're just like, what is happening? And guess what? Charles didn't die.
What cartoon are you watching, Kat?
I'm not.
I don't know a cartoon.
And I go to sleep reading this stuff. So my dreams.
I know, right?
I don't know. Like Gigi, I know there's like people who say, oh, she should have been charged with Charles's death, meaning Zulema. Like she's a part of the conspiracy. I don't know if I see it like that. Look, I'm a lawyer. I think that you have to first know that she knew that if you accept the premise that they were going to kill Charles, that was the plan, that she knew about that plan, that she acted in concert with that plan. She did something overt to move forward that plan. She aided in some way. I mean, just saying like, oh, we have to get the evil spirits out, or we have to do, I don't know, unless there's something I'm missing. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. It's kind of like they were playing Harry Potter through a text message, and so it really doesn't do any harm to do that. I haven't seen anything so far that shows me she was actively involved on July 11th, which was the day they murdered Charles. It seems to be Lori, Alex, and I'm going to tell you, I think Melanie Pawlowski very much knew. And in fact, a couple of investigators in this document dump say it was clear to them that Melanie Pawlowski knew the plan. And in fact, the morning that Charles was murdered, there were some texts really early on at like 6 a.m. with Lori and Chad, but she texts Melanie pretty much as soon as she leaves the house after the murder. So I think that's where, for me, more Melanie Pawlowski than Zulema.
So Jesse, on the network, we haven't discussed a lot about Melanie Pawlowski because we're kind of obsessed with Melanie Gibb because she's so whack and she's the state's star witness. Yeah. But Melanie Pawlowski is Lori's niece and is heavily involved in all of this because Chad told her that her husband, who she was happily married to with little kids and a nice little family, was a zombie and she needed to get rid of him. And Melanie divorced him. Alex tried to kill him. Right. So Melanie Pawlowski's it was Melanie Boudreau before she married who Chad and Lori told her to marry, which was a Pawlowski. So anyway, that's when we say, what do you call her, Gigi, on your podcast?
Oh, we call her Melanice.
Melanice, because she's Lori's niece, and that's how we know. Anyway, that's the Melanie Pawlowski. I'm putting up just little comments throughout time because the portal through the closet, if you guys don't know, Chad and Lori claimed from Idaho to Arizona that they could enter their closets and then be with one another in a closet. So that's what that is.
By the way, Chad was not charged with Charles's death. Like what like, just so I know, Charles had suspected that Lori was having an affair with Chad, but he wasn't involved in what ultimately happened, right?
I mean, he clearly knew the plan, but he was in Idaho when the murder happened. So, I mean, I don't know the law as far as if you know somebody's going to be murdered and you don't report it, is that a crime? I think at this point, that's kind of where Chad would fall in.
Yeah, I just don't think that they have enough right there to go forward. But
so Chad 100% knew, 100%. But what we can talk about as we can start talking about these text messages and emails is it's very obvious that Lori doesn't do a lot of texting. So you'll see a text from Alex saying X, Y, and Z, and then nothing from her. And so you know that she called him. And so she does a lot of calling. So we don't have a lot of her. But some things I picked up on, Gigi, and I'm sure you did too, is when she says things like, I just found out that he's still possessed. She found out from Chad. That's who's guiding her, right? She didn't. Right. Once Lori meets up with Chad becomes the person to give her all information. So Cindy Fitz says up on the screen that she believes that when she met Chad is when she met mental. Now, I agree with that. Some people don't believe she's mental, but look, people, if you want to read through the emails and the texts, something's not right. There's just something not right with a lot of these people. Well, but go ahead.
Should we show Lori's interview?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I don't know if I have it queued up to the perfect spot, but let's go ahead.
From an outside perspective, your husband, who, you're having a ton of fights with, you're having a really rough relationship with, he is just shot dead, and you are giggling in this interview with police. At one point, she sits with her eyes closed and maybe wipes her eyes a second, maybe with tears, but is like praying for her. Right. Police interview was bizarre.
So I have it queued up when she's talking about the beginning of what happened inside the house.
Or what, but he like grabbed the bat from Tylee and then went to like hit Tylee with the bat. And I was right there, they were right there, and my brother grabbed him from behind, like just to stop him from hitting Tylee.
You go like this, like he grabbed him like
from behind, like just kind of to pull him back. And then they got into the thing, and he's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like grappling around or whatever. And then it was all.
And he hit your brother with the bat while they were grappling and stuff.
Yeah, yes, he was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around, knowing JJ was in the car, right? And so then he got up and he had the bat like this towards me, and I was going around the other side to try to just get out of his range where he couldn't hit me. And then I had told Tylee that she was on the ground because after he took the bat from her, she fell back. And so I told her, I was like, go get in the car with JJ. Like, I don't want JJ coming in to the house. And I wanted her out of the way. I wanted the kids out of the way, whatever this fight was going to be. And then,
do you remember what your husband or your brother were saying or yelling during all of this? If they were at all?
Just kind of, get off me, or whatever. They were like, don't touch my knees, whatever. Like it was, I don't remember specifics, but they were kind of in the heat of it. I don't think there was many words that I remember.
So Tylee goes outside.
Yeah, she was outside,
and what happened?
Then they got up from that, and my brother had like stepped back, I guess, and then Charles was coming with me to that and yelling at me to give him his phone still because I had it in my hand. It was all really quickly. And then when I went around kind of in the circle, then my brother was there.
When you said when you were going around and he was coming at you with the bat, how was he holding the bat?
Just like that, like backwards.
Like he was swinging it backwards? He would have been like
he would have swung it backwards at me, not frontwards.
Okay, yeah.
He was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
So it was a good idea for Tyler to get out of that.
Probably not the.
I mean,
I mean, it's so funny. It's like so funny.
There's a lot of comments about whether her story of the fight matches up with Tylee and Alex's stories.
That's I don't know if I have everything queued up, but I do want to show Tylee right now, and then we'll talk a little bit.
Okay, let's see what she had to say about it.
My mom came out, and then we left from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened inside of the house? Has your mom kind of explained it all to you?
I just kind of asked her, like, because I heard a noise, which I know what it was now, but it sounded like, because I knew that the base of I was in there, it sounded like someone, like, took it and hit it really hard against the floor.
Okay.
And so I was kind of like, I was okay, right, because that's my uncle. So I just wanted to make sure that, like, my stepdad didn't do anything to my uncle and stuff. And so she was like, no, like, I was fine, like, we're just going to take JJ to school. And I was like, okay. So I just got in the car, and then we went to Burger King because my little brother wanted breakfast, which was chicken fries for no reason.
So we could go on and on and on with that. I know all three of us on this, what we feel about this. As mothers, Gigi and I want to hurt something or somebody. Tylee, we didn't see all of it. Tylee in this interview is saying, I was so worried about my uncle. I was so worried about my uncle. I came out of my room to protect my mom. These were the things she was saying. And that uncle and that mom had a hand in killing her 2 months later, according to prosecutors. So that is what is so devastating. We don't even know if Tylee's story is true. We don't know what is coached and what isn't, because Gigi could talk about this, but later on, everyone involved is worried if Tylee has her phone. Like, don't let Tylee have her phone and tell people stuff. And so Lori took her phone. And there's other things involved in this, but how sad is it that she hates her stepdad, Charles, and wants to protect her uncle and her mom, and they killed her, and Charles would not have.
Yeah, that's just heartbreaking when you think about where she's going to end up. Yeah, I mean, the thing, of course, is what really happened in that house. And, like, really, there was a commenter who came on and made a comment, like, does the fight really make sense the way it's broken down? Because at one point you do see Alex have this blood in the back of his head when he's being interviewed. And you wonder, well, initially authorities thought this was self-defense. There was something that led them to think this was self-defense. But as the story came out and the messages between Alex and Lori came out, they realized, wait a second, there might have been a plot to kill him. There's something, Gigi, you tell me, about the story with the bat and the gun, particularly the way they're struck, that doesn't make sense. I mean, especially the gunshot wounds, because what the prosecutor, the law enforcement had said, they believed that he was shot a second time while he was on the ground. Not that he was shot twice while he was standing.
Right, because when they moved the body, they found a defect in the floor, and that would have come from a straight down shot while he was down. And the thing is this: Charles was a minor league baseball, or he played college baseball. He was not a small man. If he had hit Alex with that bat, it would have been game over. We would have been reading about Alex being dead, because Charles was in great shape for his age.
And Lori's story that we didn't get to, or maybe we did, I don't know. It's he was hitting him over and over and over again when they were wrestling on the floor.
Yeah. And so I don't buy it at all. I don't know that I don't doubt that Tylee came out with a bat. Maybe she heard yelling, but it doesn't make sense, especially in the video. Lori talks about how he's swinging it behind him, how he's swinging it kind of backwards. You're not going to hurt anybody if you're swinging it backwards unless you do a circle and come around it. So none of it makes sense. I think too, the story was that Alex went into his bedroom and got the gun. And the guy, I remember the cop saying, why didn't you just stay in the room and call 911? Why did you come back out?
And what was Charles doing? Because Lori left, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Lori was there because she heard the gunshot. She just didn't see it happen. So she was still inside.
Didn't Cathy say the same thing? She thought she heard something. She didn't know it. She thought it was the bat, but it was really the gunshot.
She was outside, according to her, with JJ. And by the way, watch that. It's like so cute. She's like, JJ wanted to get out of the car, and I told him hey, do you want to crawl in my Jeep? And then I remembered we couldn't get in the Jeep. Like, she's just trying. But she said, and then I know what it is now, but I heard what I thought was the bat hitting the wood floor really hard.
Yeah, but here's my struggle with this. I'm curious what you guys think about this. If their plot was to kill Charles Vallow, right? There's so many pieces. There's so many ways this could have gone completely wrong that to bring him to the house, there was a struggle. There's something about it that doesn't make sense. If they're killing Tammy in her sleep, if they've killed the kids and disposed of the bodies, this felt like a really sloppy way to kill Charles Vallow. I mean, again, I'm talking about the blood in the back of Alex's head. Something doesn't add up either. I don't know. I just feel weird. And I know they had probably time to come to their stories together, but something strikes me as odd about that.
All of it does. I think number one, anybody who knew Charles has said he would never just leave his phone, number one. Again, another discrepancy is the story. How this all started is that Lori had the phone and wouldn't give it back. Later in the day, when authorities wanted that phone, she said, we found it in the car. So it was completely opposite of the basis of how this murder or how this argument escalated was the phone.
And
so
by the way,
right, yeah.
the whole thing was started by Lori, according to Lori. We still don't know if that's the truth. And it probably is not the truth. But according to Lori, I took his phone and said, show me your text. And I wouldn't give him his phone back. You know, she's not saying it like that, but that is what it is. He's trying to get his phone back because he's trying to take his son to school. And she won't give it back.
And
oh, sorry. I was just going to say, this is from Helen Johns. You know, I don't understand why Alex was not arrested. Did you read anything about in the messages about, you know, the plan to kill Charles, like the idea that she knew about this intervention that Charles was going to stage for her? Did you see anything about that?
Oh, yeah. That was a big part of the text a day or two before Charles was murdered, is that Lori finds out that her brother Adam is coming into town at Charles's request to confront Lori about her beliefs. And Lori obviously didn't want to have that happen. So you really see the progression once Charles finds that email and he confirms about this affair with Lori and Chad. And then we find out he gets in touch with Tammy Daybell, or he emails her. And then to me, that's really when all of this went into hyper mode to get rid of Charles. At first, they were talking about divorce. I think Lori got the phone to see if Charles and Tammy had been communicating back and forth about this affair more than I think she was looking at life insurance policies. That's my theory.
No. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I see a lot of questions here about, you know, is this all about financial gain? Is this not really about the religious aspect, but about the money?
I think Gigi feels like I do, because it's like you so desperately want to go there and you want to be like, yes, it's because of money. Yes, it's because of an affair. Yes, it's because they're infatuated with each other and need to get rid of everybody else involved. But when you take the time to read through all this, I'm totally don't know. It's like these people bought the Kool-Aid. What I don't know, because we have not seen a lot yet, I don't know if Chad bought his own Kool-Aid. Like, I think he may have, but I don't know. Lori, totally the Kool-Aid. Everybody else involved. Like, you cannot read the stuff that they are saying and think, oh, this is just all what. No, like, they're believing it.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah, and what's so funny is, ironically, Lori's the one who's incompetent, and Chad's the one who's still able to go to trial. And by the way, I saw a comment about that. When we talk about incompetence, I know there was a question about it. It's just, is someone deemed competent to stand trial? Do they understand the legal proceeding? Do they understand the rights that they have and what is actually happening? All you have to do is to be deemed competent to move forward in the process. It's a very different argument than insanity. There is no insanity in Idaho. So the idea that Lori has been deemed incompetent and she's still committed to this mental health institution, that is pretty aggressive. I mean, that means she is really out there. That is a medical opinion that she cannot stand trial. Doesn't mean that it won't change. Doesn't mean that she can't be fixed.
And no, that came from Mark Means, from her attorney, because he could no longer get her to even participate in her defense or whatever. I have to put this up. Shout out to Gigi.
Oh, thank you.
And she is the best. I've hid her away for many years, but
Yeah, she let me out of the basement finally.
I know how great she is. There's a lot of talk about the religion and a lot of talk about if they weren't LDS.
So I am curious about this. Alex was caught in a number of lies, I believe, in his police interview. Maybe investigators didn't realize it at the time, right, Gigi and Cathy, but afterwards, at least we know, he wasn't honest. I mean, the idea of he knew about that intervention, the text message from I think it was Lori's brother that he denied and said, "Oh, I don't know anything about this," when he really did, right? He was lying in that interview.
All the way through, yeah.
Should we watch some of Alex?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, and that's something I brought up when I went on Law and Crime to talk about it, was the fact that Lori's in one room saying, I had my brother Alex come spend the night because I was so worried about a confrontation with Charles the next morning because he was coming to get JJ, and I was so worried, and I knew they were planning this intervention, my other family members. So, and in the other interrogation room, Alex is like, they're like, so why did you spend the night at your sister's? He's like, no reason. We were just going to hang out the next day. So why not say because she was scared of Charles? That would go into the self-defense. Why not say that? So I'm telling you, you can't believe anything. I'll play a little bit of this, but you can't believe anything that these people say.
What I want to do is make sure that we have all the details accurate and factual. So that's kind of some of the information we got from patrol didn't really match up what Lori told us compared to. So walk me through what happened today.
Well, I stayed the night at my sister's.
Okay.
We were planning to go do something one day. We hadn't really decided. I was thinking maybe we go. I was going to take her to the range.
Okay.
Or go do something.
Okay.
I'm going to take JD to some water park or movie or whatever. So I stayed there last night, and this morning Charles showed up, and I don't know what started it.
And Charles is your brother-in-law. He and Lori were married.
Yes.
Okay.
So he showed up. He was following her and yelling. And then I got between them. And then Kylie came out with her bat. And I had separated for a minute. And then sisters walked around me there in the living room. And then Charles was following Lori and yelling. And Kylie told him to get back. She took her bat like that and shoved him, and we took the bat away. And I said, what are you doing? And I got between him, and he hit me. And I just went down, and when I got up, he was still yelling. And so I went into the bedroom where I was staying, grabbed my gun, and I came back.
Okay.
And told him to put the gun down, or the bat down. And he came to me and was saying, what are you going to do? Like that, come to me with the bat. I said, put it down. He wouldn't. He came at me, so.
Okay. So when that argument first started between Lori and Charles, where in the house were they?
I don't know.
Okay. Where did you first?
I was in my bedroom.
Okay, so you were in the bedroom and you heard the argument.
When they came right towards me.
Okay, so they were coming down the hallway towards the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay, so you heard the argument, you step out, what's the first thing that you see?
Charles chasing after Lori and yelling.
Okay. Had Cathy already gotten the bat? Did he already have the bat? Okay. So Charles is coming towards Lori.
He's coming towards Lori, and I shoved him back.
Okay.
And I said, what are you doing? Because he's coming at her aggressively.
Okay.
He's a big dude, so he's not gonna hurt my sister.
Okay. So he's coming at her.
Yeah.
And you shoved him back.
Yeah.
What happened right after that? And that's in the, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
He got back up and comes right to me, doesn't look at me, and continues to yell at Lori.
Okay.
So he's maybe this far away.
Are you in the hallway of the house? Or
right close to the doorway of that bedroom.
The bedroom you were staying?
Yes.
Okay. So you're right near the bedroom?
Yes.
Okay.
So then, I don't remember why, he backed up, and then my sister came around behind me, and they ended up in the living room, and then while they're on the way to the living room, Kylie comes out of her bedroom, which is adjacent to the one I was staying in.
Okay.
With her bat.
Okay.
Yelling at Charles. Actually, she was behind Charles at first, and then she cut around in front of him in the living room.
Okay. So he then went back towards the living room.
Yes.
After you shoved him, did he fall to the ground when you shoved him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so he falls to the ground, he gets back up, you're blocking between him and
Yes,
Lori.
yes,
And he basically is talking past you, still yelling at Lori.
yes.
That's insane.
I-
Okay. So as you're standing there between them, what happened right after that? Is that when Cathy came out with the bat?
No, he backed up.
Okay.
He yelled something, and then he backed up, and then Lori went by me and around me in the hallway.
Mhm.
So then he backed up, I cleared the doorway. So then she came around, and then Charles was behind her, pursuing her again aggressively.
Okay.
Tyler came out, yelling with the bat.
Okay. Now, are you guys in the living room then, or still in the hallway?
It starts in the hallway and it goes to the living room.
Okay.
So Tyler gets around in the living room, he stops. Tyler goes around the front of him, tells him to back off.
Right, find it easiest to do in situations like this.
All right, I'll stop it here because we could go on forever, and I probably didn't get to the most important parts, but there's Alex very nonchalantly. I just want to say something really quick. Prior to 2018, by all accounts, Alex Cox is a good guy. He's he's a comedian and is part-time, and he everyone that kind of knew him, he was very close to Lori always, but he was a nice guy. And he just killed somebody, self-defense or not. Any of the three of us on this panel takes a gun out and shoots somebody, we're not reacting like this. Like, I know you can't always say, oh, everyone doesn't react exactly the same, but very nonchalant. Killed my brother-in-law,
Well, he thought he was justified. So he was, either way, if it was self-defense, he thought it was justified, or if he plotted to kill him because he thought he was.
He's not like a police officer or somebody who is in the line of duty and this happens, right? He's an average Joe. Like, why is he so calm?
Yeah, Gigi, what do you think of when you were watching Cox's interview, Alex's?
I mean, it's almost like he's describing a movie, watching a movie. It's not like this actually happened to him a couple of hours earlier. There was no emotion. So for me, I just really feel like, and there was something said in these documents where Adam, which is Lori and Alex's brother, during the interview, he says, according to Lori, you can sin all you want and repent, and then you're good. So Alex really liked that idea because Alex was doing some things that probably would be frowned upon in the church. And there were some things about his past. I don't know if you've gotten that far yet, but Alex was accused of having relations with a 15-year-old, and he was married at the time to somebody. They up and moved because daddy was looking for him. So, he's just a shady guy, I think, but nothing in his past you would think involved in brother-in-law's murder, possibly, niece and nephew. We don't know for sure. It's kind of what's assumed.
But is he just doing the bidding of Lori and Chad? Because according to Zulema in her interview, she said that Alex told her, I think they're making me the fall guy, meaning with respect to Tammy's death. I mean, I'm curious what you guys thought about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's my thought. And I think, was I talking to you about this that night, Gigi? I said that when I first watched Alex Cox's interview, Zulema's interview, talking about what Alex said just days before his death, I had a moment where I felt sorry for him. And it's because, and I had never felt that so far, but it's because he bought into this hook, line, and sinker. He wasn't some massive killer that came out and like, yeah, now I get to kill everybody. He believed it. And what Zulema says in her interview is, she was worried that Chad and Lori were up to something. And when Tammy's body was exhumed, Tammy Daybell's body was exhumed. And she said to Alex, did you have anything to do with Tammy? And he said, no. And according to Zulema, which again, as Gigi's pointed out, we believe nothing anyone says, but some of this probably does ring true, where she says that he's like, no, I didn't have anything to do with it. And then she's like, you just need to tell me. And he says, I'm afraid I'm going to be their fall guy. So there's one thing right there. This is right before he dies, maybe a week or something before he dies. And then the second thing he says after she pushes him further is either I'm a man of God or I'm not. So for me, I had a moment of Alex, before he is dead a week later, is thinking, wow, maybe I got sucked into a lot that is not so true.
Well, yeah, because he's like, here's a comment from Geraldine: who killed the children? And the question becomes, is Alex just doing all the dirty work at the direction of Chad and Lori, or are they doing it as well? I mean, did Chad and Lori kill the kids, or did they direct Alex to do it? You know, how were they involved?
Well, Jesse, what do the charges tell us that authorities believe?
Well, it doesn't. So yes, they're charged. Both Lori and Chad are charged with first-degree murder, but that doesn't mean you necessarily have to be the one who actually does the physical killing. If you're instrumental in it, if you're directing it, if you're overseeing it, you can be charged with first-degree murder. We don't have enough details at this point, but I think they're trying to say, okay, what happened with Tammy? What happened with Charles? And maybe from that we can glean, here's a pattern here. Here's how it works. There's Alex is their soldier. I don't know. Gigi, what do you think?
Well, here's my thing. If you look at what we know now, it's easy to assume it was Alex. But here's the thing. We have never seen Chad's phone pings the night any of the children died or were murdered. I don't like that they were murdered. That's something they didn't include. They included Alex's, on the day the kids were buried and him going to Lori's apartment in the middle of the night. But I think maybe we're in for a big shock in this trial because we don't know yet.
Or are we? How many burner phones did they find in Chad's house?
Like 40. They had 30 something between them.
Like there's so many burner phones that I hope they have Chad nailed. I hope they have all that, but I don't know. I don't know what they have.
Yeah, but the assumption is Alex, but I say expect the unexpected in this case.
My personal opinion, and I agree with Gigi, because expect the unexpected for sure. But I do think, look, Alex kills Charles. We're pretty sure Alex took a shot at Brandon Boudreaux, the niece's husband, right? Tammy Daybell talks about having a paintball gun shot at her a couple weeks before she actually dies in her sleep. Alex's phone pings each day that we now pretty much sure the kids were buried. JJ was on Alex's shoulder the last time JJ was seen alive, and it all points to Alex. Everything about it points to Alex. So probably he's the heavy hand. Now, did Lori drug her kids and then Alex took it from there? Or did Chad was he's like, come bury the kids here. And then he helped, like, we don't know. And hopefully that's all going to come out. But right now it looks like Alex was doing their bidding. Alex doesn't have he doesn't have a dog in the fight. Like, why does he want these people dead? Yeah, so that they believe they're zombies or whatever, but they're people related to Chad and Lori directly and closely, not necessarily Alex.
Well, did Alex think that he was getting any money out of this?
I don't even think that. Gigi, what do you think? I saw your same reaction. Like, I totally don't think it's about money. I don't think any of it's about money.
I don't think so, because as you read through these documents and learn the dynamic with Lori and Alex throughout the years, they had a very strange and oftentimes inappropriate relationship for brother and sister. And that's the reason that Alex's first wife divorced him. She only was married to him for a year because she said the family was weird. Lori and Alex were inappropriate with each other in front of family like it was nothing. And Alex didn't like that she felt that way, and it caused problems. So I think if you look at the dynamics of their relationship and how Alex always seemed to follow Lori everywhere she went, they have this unusual bond that, I mean, he's definitely a gullible dude, or was a gullible guy. I mean, I think it's possible that they convinced Alex that he would get some reward in heaven or have some mighty standing after the second coming. And he's like, okay, I'll do it.
Well, if you believe Zulema, it was an arranged marriage with her, right? He'll just marry whoever they tell him to marry. And that's what she said, that it was basically an arranged marriage. Alex told by Chad and Lori to marry me. If they had that much control over Alex, he would have done anything.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Melanie Pawlowski. She had a beautiful family, a nice looking husband. And so she just divorces him and goes to Ian. I'm not saying anything negative, but I mean, whatever they were drinking was powerful enough to where everybody just ruined their lives to follow Chad and Lori.
Ruined their lives.
Yeah.
reading the emails and texts, they're like, oh yes, we're all jumping in right now and we're going to destroy everything that we ever knew was good in our lives. And it's just crazy. I put this up because Sharon is a longtime Facebook friend of mine that goes back many, many, many trials, probably back to Casey Anthony. And she's also very familiar with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as LDS, also known as Mormon. I am too. And Tammy was, by all accounts, an active mainstream Mormon. I do not think Tammy had any of this. I don't think that she was into any of this. And we can and maybe will have a whole show on the religious aspect of this because I'm the resident expert. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And there's been a lot of comments in chat tonight about how if they had never had those beliefs, this never would have spun off this way. And actually, I'm not going to say that's untrue because Chad takes what people in that faith believe as doctrine and then just runs wild with it, which is what we see with a lot of cults. And so I don't believe Tammy was into any of it, Sharon. I honestly, there's not one shred of anything I've ever seen that shows that Tammy had anything to do with it. I don't even think his kids were into it. I think the kids are supporting the only parent they have left. Mm-hmm. And that by really for their whole lives, he was just their great dad. And everything spun later on, at the end.
This is a good question. I remember what exactly was the blessing Chad gave Alex before he died. I remember something about that.
So I'll just talk a little bit about this. So in the LDS faith, worthy priesthood holders that are men can give blessings. When people are sick, they can give them a blessing and what have you. So Chad has taken this to the extreme. And by the way, now I'm reading that Lori was giving blessings, which is not Mormon doctrine. But we don't know, but we do know that Chad was on the phone with Alex before he died. So we do know something was said, done. I mean, did he teleport there? That's a whole other show. But that is what that means, is that Chad and Lori were going around just like randomly giving religious blessings to people, which in my faith, a blessing is like, please bless the doctor's hands, that the surgery will go well. It's like a prayer, right? I don't know what these people were doing.
And according to Zulema, Alex predicted his own death. He gave her some money, told her if anything happens to me, he dies shortly after from a blood clot, pulmonary embolism. Very, very strange. I do want to get a little controversial, and Gigi, I'd like to throw it to you because I think Cathy and I talked about this last time. I'm going to throw out another name, and I'm curious what you think because she was interviewed too. Melanie Gibb. I'd like to turn to you, Gigi, after we've seen her interview. Again, never before seen interviews were released. She, since this case broke, has been very vocal in the media. She's sat down for interviews, but now that we see her police interrogation tape, what is your take on Melanie Gibb's role here, Gigi?
I can play it. Do I play it first?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Just a little to get the Melanie vibe. All right. All right, here we go.
From a good source, but so this is what the castings really were about, is to invite the spirits to leave, or with their so-called power or their, things that they would bring. I never thought this was like a huge deal. I talked a little bit about it before. All I said too is like we did prayer, she did prayers to help cast or something. I don't know how I said it, but to me, it has no effect. There was no power in what she did, so it had nothing to do with anything because it was all by Satan. Now, when Julie Clement got involved, I remember one night we were at Lori's, the last house she was in before Charles died.
Okay, I feel like I don't want to spend a lot of time showing Melanie Gibb. If you're not familiar with her, watch all of Chad Daybell's preliminary hearing on Law&Crime Network's YouTube page, because she was the star for 2 days at that preliminary hearing. She will be the star at his trial, and this is a little bit showing her.
I mean, I think she's, again, kind of doing what Zulema did, which is, that really doesn't happen. She really doesn't have those powers, when we all know she was fall down drunk on the Kool-Aid that everybody was drinking. She was right up in there with all of them. And to me, honestly, Melanie Gibb seems a little more of a follower, though, kind of like somebody who just felt good being in with the cool kids. But at the same time, I think she's, again, knew way more than she said in all those interviews. She kind of acted like, oh, no, it was no big deal. Very nonchalant. Right. Yeah. But no, I think Melanie Gibb the same way. I think she jumped on the interview circuit to minimize damage to herself and try to say, hey, I thought they were all crazy. No, I mean, she was right there with them. You read texts, hey, can I come over? And Lori's like, nah, I'm busy.
It's more than that. She's the last person to see JJ alive.
Right. That's a big deal.
Outside of that very small circle, she's the last person. She's in Rexburg, Idaho with her boyfriend, David. They're there for the weekend to do a podcast with Lori in the townhouse, and JJ's there. And she says when she gets there, Lori tells her JJ's turned into a zombie. Now, what does Melanie Gibb know about the belief system of these crazy people about zombies? She knows that the evil spirit cannot leave unless something is done to that host body. Now, Charles is already dead at this point. Nobody else is, but Charles is dead. And she is told JJ's a zombie. And when she's leaving, the night before, she sees Alex walk in with JJ asleep on his shoulder, and it was tender and it was sweet. She testifies. And then the next morning, her and David go to leave to go back, and says, where's JJ? And Lori says he was acting like a zombie. He was crazy. He was crawling on the cabinets up top. He knocked over a picture of Jesus. So I had Alex come and get him.
Right.
He knows this, but then Chad and Lori call her. Once there's a welfare check 2 months later from Kay, Chad and Lori call her and say, hey, by the way, the police are going to contact you. JJ's with you. Wink, wink, wink. And she's telling police. And I was like, wait, what? But what does she do? She doesn't answer the call when police call her. So this is where I am very upset with Melanie Gibb. Melanie Gibb could have done something, said something. I don't think she's involved in any murders. She could have said or done something ahead of time. And then for sure, she could have done something way earlier than she did, even after now that we know the kids are dead. But she still isn't cooperating until, I don't know what it is, Gigi, a month or a few weeks after that, after Chad.
Yeah, it was a little bit of time had passed before she even got back in touch with them. And I agree 100%. She knew the drill. Zombie meant eventually that person was going to be killed. So, yeah, I mean, she did not have immunity, which I don't know. I mean, do you ever think that they
can't charge her because she's the state's key witness? Without Melanie Gibb, we don't know all this. Now we do because there's a document dump, right? So we could have known some stuff. But prior to all of this, Melanie Gibb's the key to charging Chad and Lori.
See, I remember, didn't Mark Means try to flip it on her and say, like, the truth is going to come out about Melanie Gibb? And am I wrong in that? I seem to recall him saying, like, let's say this goes to trial and Lori goes to trial, Mark Means would have a field day with her. I'm just not sure where he would go with that.
I mean, like Cathy said, it's one of those things where it's obvious to any of us that have followed this case. Anybody would have known when the word zombie was used to use caution. And I agree. She was there. And the minute that Lori said zombie when referring to JJ, I would have taken that kid and ran. And not even to mention, where's Tylee? She's there visiting, and you've got all these excuses. No big deal.
By the way, just so everyone knows, because I've been there a dozen times, Rexburg, Idaho is the size of this. It's a college town with BYU Idaho there. That's all that's in that town. That's pretty much it. And when Melanie gets there, she says, where's Tylee? And Lori goes, oh, she started at BYU Idaho early. She's only, I guess at that point, 17. Now we know she died before she turned 17. She started at BYU. Okay, well, that's literally around the corner, like 2 blocks. And Melanie's there 3 days and doesn't question. And it's over a weekend when there's no school, and doesn't question why she doesn't see Tylee.
And don't get me started about Melanie Pawlowski just accepting the fact that JJ's with a babysitter and Tylee's wherever. I mean, how long was she there? It's her cousins, and she bought that story.
Yeah, and you know, you talk about the community. We mentioned before that Chad's trial there's a change of venue. moved out of Fremont. I don't think that's going to solve anything. I think everyone in that state knows about that case.
The state.
You could put this on Mars.
Yeah. The whole country. I can't imagine a place where you just wouldn't. So, okay, it's going to be the same thing when we covered the Chauvin trial, the Derek Chauvin trial. Everybody knows about this. Can you move past it? This feels to be one of those cases where I find it's going to be very difficult to just find people who can set aside emotions and opinions on it, because once you hear something about it, you're going to hear everything about it.
You know, it's odd though, and I don't live, obviously I'm in South Carolina, but I know plenty of people that know nothing about this case. They know their faces and maybe that they're in a cult, but like you say, it's not that a juror can never have heard of it. Can they put aside what they've heard and listen to fact?
Well, and I will say that John Pryor, Chad's attorney's argument, because Rob Wood appears to want to get the jury from somewhere else and then bring them in and have them sequestered, so all the personnel don't need it. And we see this happen a lot in trials, right? You choose a jury elsewhere and then you bus them in, you put them up in a hotel, and you have the trial. What John Pryor doesn't want is you can't go in that area with still right now seeing signs, ribbons, posters. There are still things about JJ and Tylee. And so as much as nobody wants to, including maybe me, like John Pryor for all of this, but he's right. I mean, he's right about that part. So I think you can't go anywhere and people haven't heard it. But I do think having it right there in the middle, there is just the local bakery at Albertsons was doing cupcakes that said, where's the kids? By the way, it was bad grammar and I don't like that. But that's what they said when the kids were missing. So I do.
It could have been the size of the cupcake. Let's be fair to the bakery. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's a part of me that just doesn't feel we're ever going to see a trial. Is that weird? Is that weird to think? It's one separate thing with Lori, but I just don't know. I can't see it unfolding for whatever reason, whether or not something happens to Chad, whether or not he's deemed incompetent. I don't see him taking a deal. And I don't think a deal would be offered to him at all. But I just can't picture it happening. Maybe because there's been so many delays and so much information hasn't been released, but I just don't see it yet.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's been one thing after another. I don't think Chad would ever go down the incompetent route. I think that he is too into himself as this prophet, all-knowing person. So I think that would be way beneath him. It seems like Pryor and Chad are ready to roll. And I mean, it naturally separates these cases if they can get ready to do this before she's deemed competent again. So it's interesting, but I know Cathy and I have disagreed on this. I think that Chad has flipped on her. No. I think that he's done. You don't think so? I do.
He flipped on her when she became incompetent and he thought she was weak now? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Here's my thing, and Jesse might be a little shocked at this. So I have said always, never going to flip. Never going to flip. They are never going to turn on each other. They've been married in multiple lifetimes, people. They are eternal partners forevermore. They are never going to flip on each other. It's not going to happen. Also, I do know that when Lori was in jail after being arrested in Hawaii and transferred back, and Chad was still free until the kids were out in June. So we had March to June or something. Chad visited her, or maybe January, June. Chad visited her every single day in jail until the pandemic. And then he called her every single day. And her only contact to the outside world was Chad. Those two very, very interlinked. However, Jesse, Lori's wackadoodle now. And a lot of people think she's faking. And I get the want of that. I want to believe she's faking too, because she's very manipulative. I know a lot about her psyche, just reading all of her marriage stuff and court documents. But I think she may have gone a little wackadoodle. I think it's Chad's only play. Chad's only play is Lori's kids, Alex's phone. I'm out. So that's what I think maybe.
Here's where I'm left on it. Usually a prosecutor's not going to offer a plea deal unless they absolutely have to, right? Now, at one point I'm like, do they have enough evidence against him and her that they don't really need him to flip? Let's get the death penalty against him. The other part of me is maybe there's a lot they just can't pinpoint. With Alex Cox being dead, maybe they will never get the full answers. And maybe the whole truth, again, assuming Chad would tell the truth, they might put something on the table for him. I don't know, because he's the top. You know, if Lori wanted to flip on him, me and they were offer her a deal, I could see it. But offering him when he seems to be the catalyst for everything, I don't see it. I don't know. That's where I just. And by the way, you talk about her going wackadoodle. You remember there were things that came out in jail that she's purposely putting on makeup and looking a certain way. Could it not be possible? Could it not be possible that Chad and Lori had a conversation and said, listen, this is when he was visiting her. If things get really bad, I want you to pretend you're absolutely nuts, okay? That's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to work through this. You tell me, is that so outside the realm of possibility that they might have planned this?
I think Lori was smart enough to, if this is fake, to do it herself. We've always seen Lori adapt to really sticky situations. With Joe Ryan, she accused him of really terrible stuff to get sympathy, to get a little bit of slack, to get support. But here's the thing. We do on our podcast, we do a glimpse at life. I know somebody who is in prison for life for kind of in the same boat. She didn't physically kill somebody, but knew of the plan and that kind of thing. And she said, I've seen the toughest women come in here. And when it finally clicks in their brain, this is the rest of their life, they will go crazy. They will have a mental break because finally they realize, I can't wiggle out of this. Lori's never been held responsible for anything in her life, ever. This is the first time she can't, bat her eyes or whip her hair around. She's in the pokey, and they don't play that game. So I think if she went crazy, it's because Lori could not control that situation for once in her life. That's my opinion.
Maybe. I have a question from Lisa S. Do you think the kids were murdered at Chad's or just moved there? Did toxicology say anything in their autopsies? It's such an interesting question because you wonder, what is the defense going to be? The idea of Chad saying, well, these bodies were just found on my property. I didn't kill anybody.
I killed a raccoon that day and buried him in the exact spot Tylee was buried in.
Yeah, Cathy, for anybody who doesn't know, can you explain that? Because that's a huge piece of evidence.
So the day that investigators believe Tylee was buried, and when Alex is pinging there and everything else leads up to the fact she was never seen again, so it all leads up to this day, Chad sends a text to wife Tammy Daybell while she's at work and Chad's not, and he says, exciting day, something like this. Found a raccoon and had to shoot him, and now he's buried in the pet cemetery. They had a place on their big land where they buried some cats and a dog or whatever. And that is where Tylee was found. And he says, and I also got to burn all the big leaf pile, the burn pile. We know Tylee's remains were burnt. And we know she was buried in the pet cemetery. So Chad, right there. If you're a juror, you know that Chad knows.
Yeah. That's a problem.
And that was something that his daughter Emma sort of defended when they went on 2020 was, well, in the house, my dad can't see that part of the property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was just, but I mean, come on. And then they started having all these bonfires after these dates, according to the neighbors. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, and that's why, any case, they're going to tie what happened to Tammy directly with what happened to the kids. It's all goes one-on-one. It's very similar to Robert Durst, in the sense that if you want to triumph the murder of Susan Berman, you have to talk about what happened to Cathy Durst, and you have to talk about what happened to Morris Black. It's all connected. It's not an isolated event. So I think that's what we're going to see. A lot of people have questions about DNA in this case and what the DNA findings were, but that's the answer right there.
We know that there's been a little bit of a fight between the prosecution and the defense because the state was going to do some DNA testing that would be consumptive. And so they had a couple of hearings about that. So we do know also that Pryor is fighting some fingerprint evidence coming in and some DNA stuff. So that tells me they've got something on Chad directly tied to those bodies of the kids, because this isn't about Tammy, I don't think.
And probably not anything to do with Tylee, right, Gigi?
I don't think so. I mean, look,
JJ's in plastic bags and duct tape.
with a lot of duct tape. And I'm telling you, that stuff is forensic gold. You start touching duct tape when you do a crime. I watch Forensic Files. You're done. You're over.
Just watched 75% of our trials on Law&Crime
Exactly.
Network. There's duct tape involved.
Right. So, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so I do think what we don't know and what Idaho has, they're going after death. This is not a circumstantial case. They've got good stuff against Lori and Chad both to give them first-degree murder charges. So I think we don't know the half of it. We've only scratched the surface with these document dumps. We have no clue what Idaho has, and I think it's huge.
Now, I will say this. Normally, this might not always be accurate, but I have seen generally killers be pretty consistent in their method of killing individuals, their method of death. So when you have somebody like Tammy who possibly died from asphyxiation, you have Charles Vallow who was shot to death, and you have these kids who were killed and buried in really horrific ways, Tylee in a different way than JJ. It does make me think you can't say it might be the same killer all around. There is a part of me that feels that while you might have the same individuals involved, you might have different people actually carrying it out.
Well, I think too, you have to understand that these people aren't smart. They, in their minds, they thought that they were going to be protected by their saints or whatever. I don't know, their religion. I think that obviously we assume Tammy was killed by Chad. And then
Yes.
we know Charles, but we don't know the cause of death for JJ and Tylee.
No.
So it's going to be interesting to see, does it match anything with Tammy, with her death? I just think that these guys were really sloppy, and I think that
They weren't born killers.
No, not at all.
My audio just went bad.
Yeah, I heard that. I sounded like an alien.
Yeah, and if, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was only Chad who's charged with the first-degree murder of Tammy. And
That's right.
Not Lori. So that's big. That's a big part right there.
But didn't Lori, doesn't she have conspiracy to commit murder charges for Tammy?
She does have this conspiracy charge.
Okay.
An agreement to commit the murder of Tammy, but it was really what's his name?
Chad got the first degree.
Actually seems to be the killer. Maybe they talked about it and plotted it, but he might have been the one to actually do the deed. Which would be, look, again, I always see him as the mastermind. I see him as the top. He's maybe having Alex do the dirty work, but they're ultimately.
He's kind of like the puppet master,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because here's the thing that I always say. Lori has done some horrible things in her life. If you look at Tylee from the time she was a baby, that kid was moved around. She never had a sense of normal. Everything that Lori put Joe Ryan through was just the worst thing a parent can do other than kill your kid. She totally destroyed any relationship with them. I just think that if you look at Lori, she never killed anybody before Chad, though. We always suspect Joe Ryan, maybe, but her kids were alive. Colby's alive. So to me, Chad was kind of that fire to her, the gasoline to her fire.
They were the perfect storm.
Yes.
Lori and Chad come from the same base doctrine beliefs. He has what he calls a out-of-body experience, saw the other side of heaven when he was a teenager, and that's why he started writing books. She has always believed there's something more in there. And then the perfect storm meets in October of 2018 in St. George, Utah at a convention, and that's when everything blows up. And it just so happens that she's already kind of on that path. And then that's when it all just comes together. Lori, you're completely right. She was never a great mom.
No. She
was not a great mom. There's so much we could talk about that. She's not a great person, really.
No.
And then Chad, okay, well, we're not going to talk about tonight, but I will just have to mention, because Gigi has gone down the entire rabbit hole of Lori and Chad's texts, which what do you call that, Gigi?
Oh, I don't know what I call
Erotica.
it. Oh gosh, man, you know what? Chad had to ruin Harry Potter for me. Come on.
So if you want to, we will maybe start posting some things from that document dump. Chad and Lori start talking R-rated stuff to each other, but Chad doesn't really have any game. So it's very confusing. I don't think Chad had ever been with anybody besides Tammy until Lori. I firmly believe that 1000%. And you don't believe that?
No, I do believe that because the guy used the phrase loin fire in his erotic story. Lori, come on. No, he was very inexperienced and he didn't know what to do.
A whole nother time, but it's in all of the text messages between them while they're both still married to other people.
Wait a
They're
second.
getting very sexual.
Loin fire is not a good line.
Well, sorry.
No, Jesse, come on, buddy.
Something else.
I have to ask, because it's the elephant in the room. Did anyone kill Alex Cox, or what are we thinking? because I mean, seriously.
I want it to be true.
The guy dies from a blood clot, literally right at this prime time for him to, if he's a witness to everything.
Right after Chad gives him a blessing.
Yeah, and if you believe Zulema, she said that he predicted his own death. Said, if anything happens to me, I'm going to give you this money. I have to ask. I'm just curious.
Oh, Christine Hunt says this. So here's the thing, just really quick for those that don't know. He dies December, like 2019, like kids are still missing, everything's happening, right? So nobody really questions that. Then the story comes out and all that, and then we're like, oh, of course it's foul play, like 1000%, but they hold the autopsy results. They don't give us the autopsy results forever and ever and ever. So we're all saying totally murder, totally foul play, and then they come and say he had a pulmonary embolism and it was natural, no foul play. And it's like, what? How can that even be possible, knowing everything we know and knowing the timing of everything? And I'm telling you, Joseph Scott Morgan is a regular guest on Law&Crime Network. He's a forensic death investigator. He's the best of the best. He's been a medical examiner, coroner. He's the best of the best. He still is not positive that Alex Cox died of natural causes because there's so many. He thinks there's the other things that can mask that. So I don't know.
No, I think he killed himself. That's my opinion. I think he committed suicide. It was the day after Tammy Daybell is exhumed. It's too much of a coincidence. I do believe he had something ready to go. I mean, he knew what he's done over these last few months, starting with Charles, the kids, shooting at Brandon, shooting at Tammy. I mean, the clock's ticking, and then you find out Tammy Daybell's being exhumed. What does that tell you? They're on to us. I'm about to go to the pokey for the rest of my life. I think he killed himself. You'll never convince me otherwise.
I will say this, just to throw this out there, because I know about their crazy beliefs. Now, it was Melanie Gibb says that Lori and Chad thought the second coming in the world was going to end in July of 2020. They were incarcerated during that, so I guess that's why it didn't happen. But certain things happened, and every time it happened, I was thinking, oh, Chad and Lori are sitting in jail going, see, told you. Chad predicts there's going to be a plague. He writes his fiction books about a plague that hits, and the banking industry goes down, and people have to fend for themselves, and it's anarchy, and we get coronavirus.
I know.
He predicts there's a major earthquake, which I think Zulema was going to cause, but I'm not exactly sure, in Salt Lake City, where I live, and we don't have earthquakes. We don't have natural disasters here in Utah. We just don't. It's just the way we're situated. And we had an earthquake in Salt Lake City in March of 2020, right at the start of the pandemic. So the two of them are sitting there going, see? Yep. See?
Yeah, they have great powers. The only thing they can't do is teleport out of a jail. So
right, yeah.
their powers are great. By the way, I have the indictments up again, and here's just a little bit of language I want everybody to remember. You see this throughout, but count one, when you talk about the conspiracy to commit murder for Tylee Ryan, the defendants, Chad, Lori, and Alex, and other co-conspirators, both known and unknown. So that signifies to me this is an ongoing investigation, and I know there's been talk about could other people be charged here, whether it's Melanie or someone else, that Zulema. I don't know. And again, the goal would be, let's charge them so that they might be able to provide more information in a case against maybe Chad and Lori.
Go ahead, Cathy.
Gigi, I know that you have a lot of opinions about how multiple people should be charged in this case.
I mean, look, Brandon moves to a new house a few days later.
Melanie's husband that turned into a zombie. Okay.
Right. So Melanie's, her husband, is shot at a few days later. The only people that knew where he was Melanie Pawlowski, which was court ordered, by the way, because they had to swap kids or whatever, and then an ex-neighbor and a close friend. So I don't see how Melanie didn't know. And then if you look back, like I said earlier, as soon as Charles is murdered, that's the first person that Lori contacts. She rode with Alex from Arizona to Idaho. I think she's in it up to her eyeballs. And I don't think that we've passed any kind of a deadline to see her charged. I think that's going to be the next charge, in my opinion, is Melanie Pawlowski.
Cathy?
Yes. I think Melanie 1000% is in this up to her neck. And she also bought it hook, line, and sinker. And I do believe she bought it because she gave up what really all of us kind of want. And I know you can't ever know what goes on behind closed doors, but she bought it. And then she was in it. So when Charles was going to come, remember, Gigi, Lori doesn't let her go to Utah for a wedding. She tells Melanie, you cannot go to Utah because I need all the powers around me. I need everyone to protect me because it's happening now. It's happening now. And so Melanie's like, well, could I at least just like take your kids and my kids and I can just get on the road and get away from the bad stuff? And Lori's like, no, you have to stay. No, this is all part of the plan. They want you away from me. You've got to stay here. And Melanie's like, okay. So she's in it. Also in those text messages, Melanie Pawlowski and Alex are texting Lori periodically, asking her to cast out certain evil spirits from different people, and asking, are these people dark yet? Because Chad had a whole dark and light system where he was rating people, and if you had too many dark points in you, bam, you're a zombie. And so those two were constantly asking Lori about that. They were in it. This isn't for fake. This isn't for like someone to see it later on. They were totally in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And Zulema? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know if Zulema was like involving like killing people. I think Zulema was kind of in her own head, like, oh, they are evil, so I can do this, and then I can get the evil out of them. Like, I don't know, but again, she's right in it with them, right up to Charles, right after Charles. Like she's right in it also. And now when you look at her police interviews, she's like, these people were crazy, man. And so I don't know about charges. Like, I don't know what kind of charges come with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my thought too, is I don't know if they'll charge her, but I mean, she's trying to use her powers to blind and burn Charles when he's in Texas. So, you know, they all were drinking the Kool-Aid. It's just, at what point is it being culpable?
Right.
So I have to ask this. Charles knew in some degree that his life might have been in danger, right? He knew there was going to be a problem. So when he went to the house that day, there's a part of me that wonders what was in his mind? What was he thinking? You know, obviously it was the plan to stage that intervention, but he had mentioned before that basically Lori, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Lori had mentioned to harm him. You know, he'd mentioned that before. And so I'm curious if when he goes that day, do you think there was a point of him that he wanted to put an end to it? Do you think there was a point of him that he wanted to get to the bottom of it? What do you think was going on in his mind that day?
I mean, I kind of think that Charles, first of all, could never imagine that they were going to ambush and murder him. He was just going to do a very normal thing, which is take his son to school. He knew JJ was there. Tylee was there. And then he texts Adam when he pulls up. Oh, goodness, Al's here. They're up to something. He knew.
Right.
But I don't think in the back of his mind, he thought they were going to kill him.
We didn't really talk, and we won't in depth, but just briefly, Charles and Lori's other brother, Adam, were going to sort of do an intervention to get Lori out of this craziness. And Lori catches wind of it. And that's how this whole thing goes down. She wants Alex to come spend the night. And so Charles likely was going, because it was 7 a.m. He was likely going to get JJ, take him to school. Then something else was going to happen during the day. Like Adam's going to meet. We're all going to meet with Lori and go, you're crazy. You've got to get out of this. I don't think Charles was going there for a confrontation. He was going there to get JJ taken to school and then plan some kind of intervention where he could help by the way, the wife he still loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he loved her. I mean, he tried everything he could to get her help and to keep that family intact. And unfortunately, that was his demise.
Yeah, the only reason I say this is because there was this order of protection that Charles Vallow filed against Lori, and it said, quote, "She told me that she was a god and was assigned to carry out the work of the 144,000 at Christ's second coming in July of 2020. She said I was in the way and she would have to murder me if I tried to stop her." So,
what was the date of that?
That was early. That was maybe
because they got back together.
February.
Charles got back together with her. Like, he was trying to make this thing work almost until the end.
Yeah. I don't know. Absolutely horrific. I don't know if we want to get a couple more questions in before we wrap it up. I think we hit a lot of different points with
Now, this point right here is another show, The Murder Nerd, because we could talk about her mom and her sister Summer. And because Summer is also in text warning Lori that Charles and Adam are talking about an intervention and saying, "Lori, I'm here for you. I'm praying for you." And Summer was also drinking the Kool-Aid in those texts, by the way. So
yeah.
she act like now she wasn't, but she was also, I don't think she was deeply involved in like some inner circle stuff, but she was definitely thinking that Lori, she talks about Lori's mission, so Summer definitely is involved in something.
Yeah.
But there was actually that message that Lori's mom sent to Alex, and this was kind of early on as well, where it was the first time I've ever seen her sort of defend Charles, where she says, "You say he's horrible. He's giving you a house to live in. He's taking care of all of our phones." I mean, Charles was keeping that family up. And I was surprised to read that because she essentially said, "You take my truck and my clothes and my money, I'm going to be mad too." That surprised me to read because she's been such a big defender of Lori, even on TV after all this.
Just an interesting question. Do you think Chad and Lori are going to be looked at as martyrs by their followers? I don't know how many followers are left.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's one thing that's different about this cult. There was no organization to it. There was no regular meetings. There was no church. It was meet in Lori's house, meet in Chad's house, tell a few certain people these extra beliefs that we now believe. It was all very disjointed. Chad and Lori were trying to gather 144,000 to help with the end of times, but it was all very secret. And now they thought they could bring this person in, and maybe there was no church, there was no regular meetings, there was none of that. So we don't know. Your next door neighbor could have bought the Kool-Aid at one time. We don't know anything about like the organization because there really wasn't. And now I think they're all scattered.
Well, what's funny too is if you look at it, pretty much anybody that they interviewed in these documents that knew Lori before, I mean, Lori would go and tell them about these beliefs, and every one of them would say, "Oh no, I'm good. I don't believe that stuff." "I'm here to gather you." "No, I'm not going anywhere. You gather somewhere else." So, April Raymond, who was in Hawaii, and several other people that knew her years before all this stuff happened, she tried to slip that stuff in when she would catch up with them. Nobody bought this stuff. You have a small group of morons. And I hate to talk about people like that, but the stuff they were believing is just, Hollywood writers can't come up with something this bizarre.
No. By the way, is Lori doing something with Cathy right now? Because she keeps getting.
I tell you, I think she's putting a jinx on Cathy's camera.
I don't know what's going on here? I don't
know.
No, I think there was a point, and that's why again I'm torn between when these interviews are coming out in April of 2021. Very late in the game, are people just turning around saying, "Oh my gosh, how crazy was that?" What they were thinking, or at the time they're like, they're just jumping on the bandwagon.
I think some people are followers and they find something. And I mean, look, if you look at all the people that we know of that were involved in this cult, they were kind of misfits. They weren't your typical average citizen. You know what I'm saying? If you kind of look into their past history, I think they found a common group. And look, you can find groups online where you got conspiracy theorists who all gather and they believe really dumb stuff. I think this was kind of that situation.
And I will say, again, going back to what we said at the beginning, I am surprised that the Chandler police did release this information because they know a lot of people are following this case. They know that people have been studying it, and that endangers a potential jury pool. Having said that was the Chandler police, not the Idaho police. But again, Cathy, I was saying, like, I was surprised that this information was released because if they're about to look for a jury in Chad's trial and you're seeing these Idaho investigators interviewing these people, this is going to be huge news.
And I mean, look, all of us are going to report on it. It's not like we're all going to sit on it. So it is necessary to release. Who's not happy right now is Rob Wood. I'm almost certain he is not happy with this dump from Chandler because it's letting a lot of stuff out that I think he was trying to keep for the trial.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think that he is doing a lot of things behind the scenes as it has been happening. I mean, remember, we saw that interview where was it with Summer Shiflett, where he said, look, Lori's going to be charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
In that same Chandler Police Department.
Yeah. He's probably not happy.
No, for sure.
Yeah. But I respect him as a prosecutor. He's dealing with quite the case that he's probably never handled.
Well, and you guys, really, honestly, the area is no criminal land zone. Like, it's just farm towns and a college town, and it's just Idaho. And that's why they brought in a special death penalty prosecutor, and everyone thinks Mark Means is in over his head. So if Lori ever gets to the trial, I mean, we could talk about Mark Means because he doesn't have any experience in this, but Chad Pryor may be a little better to handle this, but it's just small town folk. And so this is the biggest case to hit the country in how long?
Yeah, I will agree. I think Pryor is doing a better job than Means, although I was not overly impressed when he brought in that survey expert to talk about how much media exposure there was in Fremont County when they just interviewed, what was it, like 20 people? I mean, I was like, if you're going to do a study, shouldn't you have a few more people to convince this judge to move it out?
Okay, I'm just going to say this. Jesse knows this about me, and probably Gigi knows this about me. I'm a defender of defense attorneys. I am for a reason, because nobody else is, and because I believe in our justice system, and there is a critical role defense attorneys play, and innocent people do go to prison. Okay, I'm a defender of defense attorneys. I am. This guy is in over his head. He does not have experience in this, and part of it is when you go on Twitter and start like trolling and start calling people out on Twitter as the attorney on the biggest case in the nation, that tells you right there that's a problem. And I have covered enough trials in many years, hundreds of trials at this point. That doesn't happen. Attorneys don't just go out on social media just calling people out and watch the rats scatter. And I can't wait to get Melanie Gibb up there. Like, that's not what happens. So I do think he's in over his head. So it'll be interesting to see who else is added to his team if Lori ever does go to trial.
Yes, that's a very, very good point. All right, I'm not seeing any new questions, but Gigi, Cathy, any final thoughts before we wrap it up here?
Well, I'm only on page 700 of 1,300. And do you feel really exhausted after you have a good little session reading this stuff?
So I told Jesse that I fell asleep last night to your notes, Gigi, because you have been able to dig further. I mean, I'm wrapped up in the Alec Murdaugh case. I'm wrapped up in Durst everywhere. And so I was reading your notes last night and fell asleep to that. And I had some strange dreams. And I don't know.
Welcome to my world.
My whole life is like true crime. So normally it doesn't infect my dreams, but this case has gone into my dreams. I will just say that I know it's sensationalized, and I'm a true crime junkie. It's where I started. It's where I live and breathe. I'm a trial junkie. It's in my blood, and I love this stuff because it's soap opera-ish, and that's what we all kind of get into. But I never forget the victims in this. They're real people. You know, I was there the day that the kids were dug up. I was not there when they were getting dug up. So I got a text saying there's a backhoe in Chad Daybell's backyard, and I texted the president of Law&Crime and said, I'm out. But it's a 3.5-hour drive. So by the time I got there, they had it all blocked off. And then I got there to the property the next day. But I was there for the few days. And those kids, like everyone is very affected by those kids, and everybody's very impacted by what those kids went through. JJ, who is autistic and completely defenseless, and Tylee, who grew up with a mother that is manipulative, like who knows what she thinks right in the end. All of it. Tammy Daybell's just living her life. She's just living her best life. She's married. She's a librarian. She's raised 5 kids. Like she's doing her thing and finds out her husband's having an affair and then she's dead. Charles Vallow loves Lori and wants the marriage to work and loves JJ more than anything. And he's dead. Like you cannot forget the victims in all of this. It's very sensational, but these are real people. And I will say that someone in the chat said Melanie Gibb is probably worried that she could have had too many dark points. You can't be around these people and be a part of their circle and not be worried. What if, Yeah.
And I think it's important to cover this case because it's so complex. It's so detailed that things could be lost. And this is not the kind of case that you want to lose those things. So I agree with you, Cathy. I mean, to just provide some context about what actually happened is really important. And if anybody wants to follow more of it, obviously they can go to Law&Crime, but they can also follow Gigi at Pretty Lies Alibi, that Pretty Lies and Alibi Twitter. Gigi, do you have another account that you have other than the Twitter page or podcast or anything like that you want to share with everybody?
We do. We're on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, all Pretty Lies and Alibis. That's the only account that's shorthanded because it's Twitter and you can't have the long one. So yeah, we're everywhere and we keep it fact-based. We don't do speculation. Well, we speculate a little bit about things. No rumor. We try to keep it honest. And like Cathy, we try to keep it about the victims because, you've got documentaries, you've got these Lifetime movies. At the end of the day, you've got a lot of family members that are going to deal with this till the day they die. This is not a documentary or a podcast episode for these people. This is their life. So we really just try to keep it straight-laced and, we'd love for you to check us out.
But you do have a podcast.
Yes, I do, with my best friend of 30-something years. And we've been best friends since high school and actually started this the day they found the kids' bodies. I'd done this years prior, some with you, and took a lot of years off because my kids were little. It was too much travel. And with this case, I read about it as soon as it hit mainstream media, told Fruit Loop, read about this case. Really cool. No true crime experience for her. She nails it. We have a great time. And
Fruit
we keep
Loop
it
is your best friend. I don't think she was like born with the name Fruit Loop, but that is her name.
No, it's just her last name's Looper, and so Fruit Loop, and but she's
it's a great podcast. I'm totally vouching for it. Everyone needs to go there because Gigi she goes deep into this stuff. She lives and breathes it, and it is fact-based. I go like off into whatever land, right? But Gigi tries to keep it back down to here to center, and so I do recommend that.
What's the name of the podcast, just so everybody knows?
Pretty Lies and Alibis.
Okay, so it's the same one. All right, we had a question about that. All right. Gigi, fantastic having you on. If we do this again, you have to jump back on. And
I would love to.
I suspect we will probably do this again as this case ultimately progresses. There's always an update every few months. Cathy, amazing as always. Terrific. You guys know more about this case than I think anybody possibly could. So I think you probably know more about it than Mark means. Just going to throw it out there. You probably know more of the details.
I think so, actually, Gigi.
We don't want to help him out, but
But seriously, thank you both so much. And everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Jesse Weber. Jesse Weber, Anchor's Law&Crime Network from 9 to 12, Monday through Friday with the morning docket with Jesse Weber. And you are the anchor when we do these shows because you're a little less crazy than me. So.
Well, you just keep me informed about all of it. But all right, everybody. Thank you. Everybody have a great weekend and stay safe out there. Thank you.